So, after finishing Persona 5 for like 3 or 4 times, I've always had this idea of the general public being the main reason why, or the main problem beyond many of the events in the game. Of course, they're not the ones doing the crimes, but the hypocrisy and the lack of care they show is the reason why characters like Kamoshida, Shido, and basically every villain are able to get away with their acts. The general public are the ones with the most sway and importance in the society Persona 5 tries to portray. The Phantom Thief need the public support to feel like they're having an impact with their action. Shido needs the vote of the masses to be elected as Prime Minister. Kamoshida needs the student to keep quiet and the whole school also, so he can basically get away with anything he wants. And Yaldabaoth is literally created by the unconscious desire of the masses because they don't want to think for themselves. The Yaldabaoth discussion is actually pretty interesting because in some way he isn't totally wrong. I still think his way of salvation is the worst possible outcome because he basically makes everything worse. But on a base level, his argument on people being too stagnant and the lack of urgency, he is definitely right on that topic, but that's a different debate for a different day. Of course, there's more example of the impact of the public on a story, but I found this far to be the most important for this context. Most of the time, the general public feels very passive during the events of the game, like they don't care unless it's something that is personal and happening to them. I think this discussion with Akechi really shows how they really feel about all the current events happening in the story. They just see it as entertainment, something exciting to talk about, but never a wake up call for them to change and to move forward basically. I want to structure this video in two parts because I have a lot to say. The hypocrisy when it comes to the Phantom Thief and the lack of care when it comes to fixing society as a whole because they have the most sway, so it is based on their action that we can move forward and change basically. The relationship between the Phantom Thief and the masses is a prime example of the hypocrisy. At first, they were seen as heroes, taking down corrupt people from the top, and I do really think that some people genuinely believe and supported the Phantom Thief. Even though their methods are far from legal, I mean, forcefully changing the heart of someone is almost equal to brainwashing them. People are able to function based on their desire to live, to love, to be passionate about something. So robbing them from those feelings is very close to basically shutting them down. I wish the game showed us more of the aftermath of some of the change of heart and how they moved on. I know there's Futaba, but that's a very different case compared to someone like Kamoshida, Madarame and all the other villains. But anyway, it is not that big of a deal. The Phantom Thief really did help a lot of people with their problems, and all of those different momentous regrets is the perfect example of the impact on the lives of many people. But as the story progressed, you can see the Phantom Thief losing sight of the goals and becoming more and more fixated with fame and the approval of the masses themselves. It was during that time of the story where things were going way too well for them. They were seen as national heroes after taking on Medjet, and it was getting so overwhelming that they wanted them to replace the police. They were making merch out of them, using them for the popularity for their own game, and they basically wanted the Phantom Thief to resolve all the problem with current society, which is another example of the lack of urgency for actual change. Yaldabaoth isn't too wrong, but anyways. With all these events piling up, they were bound to make a mistake, and they did, a major one. I really don't know if I can fully blame them for what happened. I still think they should have been more cautious about Okumura. They acted very recklessly. At the end of the day, they are still teenagers with supernatural powers. They were bound to mess up, and the whole plotline with Morgana made everything worse. But I still think it was out of their control because Shido was the one pulling the strings. But at the same time, I feel like if they were not so fixated with fame and the public approval, it could have been way different. But at the same time, they had to save Haru from her fiance, so they had to change his heart. It is actually very complex the more I think about it. They were too reckless and too powerless at the same time. It was after Okumura's death that everything changed for the worse. They went from heroes of Japan to being treated as murderers overnight. The game does a good job showing you that change with the support meter you see on the calendar. I believe it takes you 2/3 of the game, or like the first two halves before the final act, to get over 80 or 90% of the support of the masses, and then you start losing 20% in just one night, and then another night, and then vice versa. In 1 week, I'm pretty sure you lose all the support you built up over the past 6 months, which is scary because they didn't give you a benefit of the doubt. They instantly crucified you on a spot and they moved on like you never existed. All the past action is now seen as a hoax, something that doesn't matter. Of course, there are still some people that believe the Phantom Thief are innocent, but with the minority being so low, it is basically useless to even mention them. Like time and time again in the story and what it shows, the voice of the masses is always the most important one. The masses has always been shown to be very passive in basically all the major story events in the game. The people don't want change, they don't want to struggle, they don't want to fight. They're always looking for an easy way out and blaming other people for their misery. They put all the burden of fixing society to the Phantom Thief because it's an easy way out. They don't realize the collective force they have when they band together. They are the one capable of changing the status quo, but refuse to do so because it feels like doing so much work. There's a reason why the death of Mementos, basically the palace of the whole masses, is related to the sin of sloth. With each passing day, we've seen the masses stagnate over and over again, even though the Phantom Thief have done a good enough job to inspire people to change. So in this case, is Yaldabaoth really wrong for thinking the way it thinks? He is obviously the worst choice when it comes to fixing society's problem because you basically have to give up your freedom, your friends, just for fame and for a world even more messed up than before. But my point is, his argument of the masses being too stagnant to change is correct, and basically every story arc in the game proves it. Even after exposing characters like Kamoshida, Shiro, Madarame, who are all unforgivable, they display a lack of care to change anything. So of course Yaldabaoth, who is born from their desire to be ruled over, is gonna feel entitled to save the world, in quotation of course. So yeah, that twisted sense of salvation is the reason why he exists. It is because of them. Why should the masses have the freedom of choice if they're gonna choose someone like Shiro as prime minister, even after everything about his misdeed has been published and they display countless times during the whole story? They are incapable of thinking for themselves. The Phantom Thief was just seen as a trending topic, something they could dump all the problems onto, and at the end of the day, they just forgot about them like they never existed. So it's very fitting that the only way they were able to change and move forward was them finally standing up against Yaldabaoth and his twisted salvation. But I also find it very ironic and hypocritical that it's only when something personally affected them that they decided to stand up. Nothing too deep of course, but I find it very funny how they just switched up like that. The reason I found the general public and the masses to be done so well in a story is because it is exactly how it works in the real world. It feels very grounded and realistic with the way it's portrayed in the game, and they just cooked with this plotline. It doesn't feel in your face, it is in the background, but it still feels important because many story events and story moments points on the public being the main focus of basically everything. Like, it is just great. But that's all I got for today. Thank you for watching. The reason why I wasn't uploading that much was because I was playing Elden Ring DLC, SMT5 Vengeance, Bloodborne. I think there's 2 more that I'm missing. Oh yeah, Persona 5 and the Nier Automata. That was a mistake. I wasn't able to focus on scripts, videos, and recording and editing. I was just so focused on playing those 2. And Radahn is the most nonsensical boss fight ever. I almost went crazy, but I need to lock in. I'm gonna try my best to be consistent. But thank you for watching, and peace.